So welcome to week number 2 in the Ferrari Challenge on iRacing. We're here at Portland International Raceway, a new track for iRacing and a new track for me. We're starting dead last on this one. We had an incident in qualifying on both laps that put us at the back. But before we get started in this race, I'm going to cut to a clip from the previous race on the opening lap on the first corner. So quick hands were needed there, as well as paying attention to my mirrors to avoid an accident. As we get going here, Adolfo falls back a little bit. I'm not sure if he was just trying to see what happens and try to avoid any turn 1 incidents, but as we come up to turn 1, we send one up the inside, hold it tight on this right-hander, giving plenty of space on the left, understeering like crazy because we're not on our brakes, and we gain 3 positions. I got caught off guard a little bit there by the cars in front. I knew they would brake early. I wasn't expecting them to brake that early coming into turn 1. And I had this feeling at the start of the race that if they left the gap and they left the right side open, I was going to position my car on the right side and go up the inside as best I could. And I knew where my braking point was, even on cold tires. I've been practicing during the week, so I felt confident that I could stick a move up the inside. Wasn't expecting them to brake that early, kind of got caught off guard a little bit, and really braked late. Very, very big dive bombers. We're hassling this blue car up in front, trying to see if he makes a mistake. He brakes a lot, kind of Constantina effect and cold tires, and people are braking a lot into the section, so we're having to check our brakes a lot here. But yeah, just the braking into turn 1, I kind of got caught off guard a little bit there, and as I said, sent it up the inside, absolutely sent one up the inside, and it worked out this time. As we come up into turn 1 again on lap 2, I'm braking a little earlier, lifted off a little bit earlier. I didn't want to repeat that move because I got lucky the first time. I probably wouldn't get lucky the second time. Would run into someone and have an accident. We do get a better run out of here than that blue car, so we gain a position out of it, so it wasn't a total loss. So being a bit cautious worked out in this instant, and we gained another position, so we're up to 11th. Looking at the kind of relative as well as the standings, we can see Adolfo is making his way through as well. So he is a very quick driver and he's going to make his way through the field following us. So our goal was to try and get through the traffic quicker than he would to see if we can gain as many positions as we can, as that orange car almost hits the wall on the right. And we're going to hassle this red car up in front. Coming into this chicane, we're going to pop out to the left slightly to try and put him off his braking point. It doesn't really work here, and I think I know why it doesn't really work. He has 1 or 2 cars in front of him, and I think he's concentrating more on them than he is on me behind. And if he's not looking in his mirrors, you can exploit that. But in that instance, there wasn't a huge braking zone. It was more of a light braking zone into a tight corner, so I don't think that was going to work, as we had to check our brakes here, and we do touch, but it's a 0x, so with 0 damage, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, it didn't work in that instance. It would have worked probably into turn 1, but I was nowhere near close enough to be able to outbrake him into turn 1. But yeah, just following along now, we're trying to see if we can gain a few more positions, as well as hassle the cars in front, force them into a mistake. We're in a line of cars here in a kind of a train. We look in our mirror, Adolfo sends one up the inside of James, and he gets a move done, so he's right behind us now. Now I've got to watch my mirrors with him. He was a very quick driver, and I knew he was a quick driver just by the way he was passing, how quickly he caught up to us after kind of hanging back at the start. So I knew he was going to be a quick driver, and I knew I would see how the race would go. And I was thinking at this time in the race, should I fight him, should I not fight him, just let him off and see what happens. And I let it play out, and I was watching my mirrors as we come into turn 1 here now. He could put a move on us, and I brake as late as I dare. He's right up behind us. I think he touches us, I can't remember, but if he did, it was another 0x. And here now I'm thinking, okay, he's really quick. He's braking much later, sticking the corners better than I am, and if he does send one up the inside again into turn 1, then I'm not going to fight it. And I maybe will fight it a little bit in these corners, but if he sends one up into turn 1, I'm not going to fight it. So I'm placing myself in the middle of the road, thinking, you know, it might be okay to kind of block off a move, but he really sends one up the inside, really good on the brakes there, and I kind of a half-arsed attempt at a defense there, so I wasn't really too displeased that he got past. Ideally I would not let him pass, but he was so much quicker. When I looked at the results at the end of the race, he was over half a second a lap quicker than I was. As the car goes off here, and we're going to see if we can get past him and gain another position. Currently down to, we lost the position, we're down to 12 thanks to Adolfo, but we gain our position back up to 11, so that's a net 0 places gained and lost on that lap. So we're going now, our focus now shifts. It changes to, rather than worrying about Adolfo, we're going to see if we can follow him and see what we can learn, see if we can gain speed and just follow him past cars and hope that as he goes up the inside of cars into corners that they run wide, and then we can possibly gain positions that way by following him. So yeah, the game plan shifted halfway through this race. I wasn't upset with him getting past it. He was much quicker, and he's a 4,000 iRating driver, so yeah, I'm not too worried about him getting past. Ideally, as I said, I would not like him to get past to gain more places, more iRating, but it is what it is. He was bound to get past at some stage. So we're trying to keep onto the back of these cars in front, but we are getting dropped a little bit here, and I think that was because I got a bad exit out of the hairpin, and that kind of compromised me down the straight, losing a few tenths down the straight. We do gain some time here into this the last corner here. A little loose on the exit, but we're gaining a little bit of time. We're seeing if we can get back up to these guys into turn 1. They get a slightly better drive out of the last corner. As I said, I slid out a little bit as Adolfo goes for a slight move, and I'm trying to follow him through here, go for a little bit of a switchback. The car on our right hits Adolfo, and I back out on a 3 wide into a tight right-hander. So I couldn't follow him there. A little bit disappointed by that. It was an opportunity that kind of presented itself, but quickly that door shut rather quickly, and it was one of those things, as a car spins out, we gain our position, but it was one of those things where I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to go side by side. My spotter, crew chief, said it was 3 wide, and I know I'm on the outside, and it was always a risky move, so I backed out of it. Probably the best choice overall, but it's one of those kind of frustrating things that happens in a race where you're feeling feisty, you get a good run, and then you kind of have to back out because you can't trust the people around you. And it's a bit of a weird thing that happens sometimes. If you race with regular people, or people regularly, then yeah, you could probably judge it a bit better that way. But with people that you've never raced before, don't recognize the name, as we get very close to hitting that wall, you have to play it a bit more cautious. So I don't think I ever mentioned it, but I think the strength of field here was just over 1.8k, and our current iRating coming into this race was just under 2.3k. So we were hoping to get a good result here coming into this race, but having the bad qualifying kind of really shifted the focus. It became more damage limitation again rather than trying to maximize iRating gain or anything like that. Right now, 0 incident points, even though we had contact with 2 cars so far, but there was very, very minor contact in braking zones. So no damage, no incident points. We're just going to follow along Daniel and see if we can gain more positions. Currently in 10th. Not sure if we're going to gain iRating or lose iRating in 10th place, but I assume we're going to lose iRating because it's not halfway through the field. The field in this one, top split, I think it was about 16. That's where I started anyway, 16. As we see smoke up ahead, Adolfo's going up the inside of his green car. Green car is on the outside. Red car touches and they go off. And that gained 2 positions there. Not exactly sure what happened there. It looked like the green car kind of tried to cut back across the track, didn't hang out tight left, and it looked like the red car was just squeezing him, and they just collided, and the green car touches the back left corner of the red car and spins him out into the wall, taking both of them out. So we are lucky there. We gained the position. I kind of sensed something might happen after seeing the smoke and Adolfo going up the inside. I was thinking, yeah, this green car is going to be a little loose. Sometimes what happens in this Ferrari is if you get the back end loose into a corner, the very next corner, the back end is immediately loose. Even if you brake at your normal braking point and you are gentle on the accelerator, it's still a little loose. I'm not sure exactly how iRacing does their tire modeling, but I got a feeling that little bit of overheating has a very immediate effect on the next corner, and it's usually only a corner, maybe two, will affect you. So you just gotta be aware of that. Our lap times on this one weren't the best. We were doing about mid to low 1 minute 11s. I have done a high 1 minute 10 and that was in the previous race. I did 1 minute 10.8 something. So it could be the conditions. I think this was a slightly hotter race, which will affect the tires and will affect your grip. But and we were dealing with traffic a lot in this one, so the speeds and lap times I was doing as we gained another position there where the car had spun out. The speed and kind of lap times I was doing was a little slower than practice and previous races, but I'm putting that down to conditions rather than, and maybe just me being a bit more tentative coming through the field. But yeah, we're trying to catch up to Adolfo now. He's 2.3 seconds ahead, and he is starting to pull away, and this is something I noticed mid-race and then double-checked afterwards. He was very quick. He was half a second a lap quicker than we were throughout the race, and I'm not sure. I looked at the replay afterwards. I'm not entirely sure where he was gaining the time, and I think he was just better on the brakes, trail braking a little better, carrying a bit more speed. I didn't have a lot of time to do many races this week at Portland, but I wanted to. I felt fast and I wanted to spend some time looking over telemetry. I've recently started looking into using VRS and their free telemetry software, so you get one track a week to look over for free, and you can see your telemetry against a bunch of people. And I've been using it at the end of towards the end of last season and the start of this season. I've been using it when I can and I have time. And it's a good tool because sometimes you can figure out if you're braking a little too late, a little too early. If you're braking, let's say, too late and too hard and not carrying enough speed, you can alter your braking. But yeah, I didn't get time this week. I had a bunch of stuff going on. But then I was also figuring out the previous issue I had last week at Sebring with my VR and my computer kind of low frame rates and half the frame rate I was normally getting. So I was tweaking that for a while and messing around, and I did get it working prior to this race, and I was up to about my usual 90. It did dip a little bit down to 80 FPS, but yeah, back to kind of usual. And funnily enough, I went back to Sebring for a couple of laps after I got my FPS back up, and I did a couple of laps and I immediately gained about 1.2 seconds after only about 3 or 4 laps around Sebring. So yeah, I was shocked, to be honest with you. I was really shocked that you can lose that much time just because your frame rate is low. It makes sense. It makes sense because I just had no confidence in the car. Every time I hit the brakes at Sebring last week, I felt like the car was going to spin out, and that makes sense because you're getting less information. If you've ever played an FPS game, you want the kind of high frame rate, and you always feel like something's not quite right, and it's not as smooth, it's not as precise in an FPS. It makes sense now looking back, but at the time I didn't realize that having half the frame rate when you're doing a race, it would impact you that much. But it did. It really did impact me at Sebring last week, and that's probably why I didn't enjoy Sebring last week. But anyway, we come around onto lap 12. We're being dropped by Adolfo. He got past Renato for 5th place. We're still in 7th. Right now, we're in kind of no man's land. We have a 3.6 gap to the car behind, and we've got about 2.6 to the car in front. So we're all by ourselves here. We've got nothing going on. We're hoping that a couple of cars out in front might get into a kind of a tangle or might make mistakes that we can capitalize on. A couple of cars already did, and we gained a couple of positions. But I was happy with 7th right now in this part of the race. I was happy thinking, 7th is not terrible. It's damage limitation. I should not lose any I rating. I currently have 0 incident points, so I wasn't pushing as hard as I could because that gap was over 2.5 seconds, and there's only about a lap or two left, and any benefit I would get from pushing would probably be a maximum of half a second, and I wouldn't even be close enough for Renato to be looking in his mirror. So I wasn't pushing too hard, although I did get a little squirrely through this section here. Ran a little bit wide, which compromised my entry into the last corner, and then that compromised my exit, so we lost a little bit of time there. I believe this is the last lap we're coming up to now, lap 13, and we're still in 7th. But yeah, just going back to that thing with Sebring, I think the issue with the frame rate was I was using OpenXR. For whatever reason with the last update, it messed with my frame rate, and I went back to the Oculus renderer, and that, with a few tweaks, got my FPS really, really much higher. So yeah, weird thing with VR, you can't, on computers you always have something going on, you have to figure it out. So I ate into a bit of my time this week. A couple of computer upgrades coming along any day now. Going to be upgrading processor and RAM and a few bits and pieces to hopefully get a few more frame rate, and seeing if that helps with just launching into the game, a few things like that. So yeah, looking forward to that. As we come down the back straight, the gap is down to 2.2, even though I'm not pushing, but yeah, even if I was pushing, it'd probably be down to like maybe 1.9 seconds. Maybe there's an opportunity here, but I believe this is the last lap, so I wasn't really going to push too hard and possibly run the risk of making a mistake. So yeah, coming across the line here, we're going to come across in 7th, and happy enough with that. We're going to cut now to see what the results are going to be like and what kind of iRating and safety rating we've gained this week and overall. So, gained a little bit of iRating, +3, not much, but I'll take it. And gained a bit chunk of safety rating, so we're up to 3.59 in B license, and our overall iRating is 2274. Fastest lap for me there was an 11.4, so not my fastest lap. I was a bit off the pace this week, but happy enough with the result given that we started from last. So if you liked this video, guys, like, comment, subscribe, the usual stuff. And I hope to see you next week when we're at Spa, a track I really enjoy.